it is a big week ahead of economic data, and in Washington, the Commerce Department will release the second quarter GDP on Thursday this week. And if we get another contraction for the second quarter, we will have confirmation that we are, in fact, officially in a recession right now. So far, the estimates show growth for the second quarter, so we will see. But 2 straight quarters of contraction means a recession, and we did have a decline of 1.6% contraction in the first quarter. Also next week, the Federal Reserve is meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we are expecting the Fed to raise interest rates by another 75 basis points, making borrowing more expensive on top of inflation at 40-year highs. In Washington, it is the final week in session before the August recess, as Democrat lawmakers are still trying to push through more spending and higher taxes. Joining me right now with a look at what gets done in the week ahead and beyond, with now 107 days before the midterm elections, is GOP leader, California Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me back on the show, Maria.
Before we get into the week ahead and your thoughts on where we are and what's most important to the American people, your reaction to what you just heard from your colleague, Ro Khanna, with regard to this climate change emergency that he's calling for.
Well, this is the problem with Washington, the problem with Democrats. The thing Ro Khanna did not tell you, he said he was opposed to sending oil to China. He voted against the ability to stop that just last week. Ro Khanna was the one individual, when he had an ability to ask a question to all the CEOs from the energy companies, you know what he asked them last year? He asked them if they would promise to produce less oil. So if you want your gasoline price high, that's exactly what he was requesting of them to do, putting them on the spot. So when he talks about going to this Green New Deal, he's picking one part over another. And that's the problem, and that's what the Biden administration and the Democrats are doing. We've got an energy emergency right now. We need to be producing more American energy, not less, but that's what they have been working time and again.
Yeah, I did try to make that point. But, you know, when you look at all of these issues out there today, you can understand why President Biden's ratings are at all-time lows. Only 31% of the American people think he's doing a good job. With inflation at 40-year highs and the wide-open border, there is a lot to complain about, Congressman. And yet, why aren't the Republicans doing better? Look at these numbers that we have for expectations in the congressional races. Now 107 days away, and you're talking about a dead heat. What is wrong with the Republicans that you cannot capitalize on such a moment in time where virtually everything is going wrong?
Well, let's look at what reality, Maria. Majorities are not given, they are earned. But that is a poll, but let's look at what happened just in the last month. Republicans just won a seat that was 84% Hispanic, the second most Hispanic seat in the country. That Biden just won a year and a half ago by 13 points, and Obama won by 22. The last time a Republican held this seat was more than 100 years ago. Mayra Flores has never run before, but she's a member of the U.S. Congress right now, and it's along the border. So Republicans are doing quite well. And I think when the American public sees the commitment to America, it is a plan of a new direction to put America back on track. What the Democrats have done by creating inflation, the pain, just the points that you put up there, but put it in perspective. If a person is paid on a salary, they have just lost an entire month of work for free because of the Biden administration. The border, that's a national security crisis, and they've done nothing but make it worse. Then when you look at the crime within our streets, you look what happened to Lee Zeldin, that's a direct effect of what the Democratic policies are. There is going to be an opportunity in 107 days to change the course of history, a new direction, as we say, in a commitment to America, where we'll become energy independent. Go ahead.
What are you going to do about this crime? You mentioned Lee Zeldin. This is a really important point that you make, Congressman, because the attacker was back on the streets within a few hours before getting rearrested because of the no cash bail laws in New York. Can you do anything to actually pivot here on crime? You're seeing crime spike across the country in all big cities. And by the way, those cities and states are run by Democrats. The media seems to be ignoring that incumbent New York Governor Kathy Hochul's campaign actually urged supporters to go to the Zeldin events and agitate.
Exactly. It's the Democrat DAs they've elected. It's to defund the police. But what can the federal government do? Well, we provide a lot of COP grants. But if we are in the majority, the COP grants we send to these communities would put one perspective on there. We would say you cannot have them unless your DA upholds the law. If it's picking and choosing, if it's doing this cashless bail, you cannot get it. It's the exact same thing that Ronald Reagan did when he raised the drinking age from 18 to 21. We can utilize that as well. We can make this country energy independent and lower the gas price. We can make sure that our borders are secure and stop fentanyl from moving across. But the one thing I really looked at from the Democrats, they have created all these problems. But one of the other bigger problems is they have no plan to solve it. We're only here for one more week, and they have no plan coming before us but to spend more money. And it's not just Republicans warned about that American Rescue Plan. Steve Ratner, a Democrat, he calls it the original sin of where inflation began. Larry Summers warned him before they passed it. This is the Secretary of the Treasury, a Democrat. They all knew what they were going to do, and now they try to deny it. And remember, that bill passed with not one Republican vote.
And it's not just the issues around bad policy. There's also corruption in plain sight. Why is it that Nancy Pelosi's husband keeps getting so quote-unquote lucky by buying companies that are getting impacted by the legislation that Nancy Pelosi is directing? Okay, now we understand that Paul Pelosi bought shares in NVIDIA. This is a chip company, and he did it right before a congressional vote on related chip subsidy legislation, the legislation I was just talking about with Ro Khanna. Here is how she answered when reporters asked her about this consistent buying of individual stocks by Paul Pelosi. Watch.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
She said absolutely not, Kevin McCarthy. We're supposed to just buy that and forget the whole thing?
Yeah, you know, this isn't the first time Paul has done this. And it's not that he's buying stock. He's buying calls and puts. He's buying options. And you know the one person that controls the whole House, can determine what bill comes out of committee, what bill comes to the floor, is the Speaker of the House. And Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi made $5 million the last time this happened. And it was about technology and what we were going to bring forward. And you know when he made $5 million? This is why they don't care about inflation. Because the American family has lost $3,400 because of their policies. It's costing them more than $500 a month. It's like a new car payment, but not giving them the car. And look at the way Nancy Pelosi looked at him. Never. And he did it again. In the commitment to America, when we look forward, I've promised as we move forward, we will change the ability for this. We will bring trust back to Congress. And we will not allow the idea that a Speaker of the House can have them trading in options.
I mean, it's extraordinary. Real quick before you go, I got to squeeze in Taiwan because you actually met with the Taiwanese ambassador earlier this week. What did you learn about the China threat? And I thought it was really interesting that the CCP threatens Nancy Pelosi not to go to Taiwan, and then Joe Biden backs them up. Says the military doesn't think it's a good idea for Pelosi to travel to Taiwan. Are you getting any pushback because you met with the ambassador?
Well, President Biden sounds like the commissioner of the NBA. He just folds to whatever China wants instead of standing up for America. We met with Taiwan. Why did we meet with the ambassador of Taiwan? Because there's one thing we have learned. A military makes you strong, but dependency makes you weak. And look what happened in Ukraine. The actions of President Biden was always too slow. Had he provided weapons ahead of time that would have deterred Russia from entering, he's delaying weapons from being sent to Taiwan. Let Taiwan defend themselves. Let's make sure China does not invade Taiwan, and let's not allow China to dictate where any American citizen goes to meet any others. If that is the case, should we dictate that China should not be coming to America or to other countries as well?
Wow. All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman, it's great to talk with you. Thanks very much for being here this morning. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy.